Hello, and welcome to Alcohol Free Radio. I'm your host, Chris Becker, and I'm excited to have you join us. Whether you are new to the amazing and growing alcohol-free community or someone who is already familiar, we hope you enjoy our program. This is where you can hear from some people making a real difference, whether as brewers and creators of amazing beverages, influencers in the community, retailers, authors, storytellers, and more. You'll be hearing from some amazing people and hopefully learn some new things about the growing world of alcohol-free. We will be using a few segment formats and hosts as we aim to break it down and bring it all together. Our goal is simple: to build awareness about this great community and help make alcohol-free fun, easy, and tasting great. So here we go. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, welcome to Alcohol Free Radio. This episode is fun for me because I get to reconnect with a friend and colleague, Jillian Fontana, who we had on the show early. We're talking pandemic. And we geeked out and were trying non-alc wines and came up with a few interesting ideas, and we talked about what we liked and didn't like. So if you haven't seen that episode or heard that episode, I encourage you to check it out. But on this episode, we're getting a chance to catch up, so I hope you enjoy it. Hey everybody, welcome to Alcohol Free Radio. As I mentioned, this is an exciting episode because I get to reconnect with a friend and colleague, Jillian Fontana. We met as in the business early on, is a professional sommelier turned founder. So we're going to get to hear that story and what's been happening in the few years since we last had an episode. So welcome, Jillian.
Thank you. Yes, great to be back.
Yeah, it's great to see you. I know we've run into each other here and there over the years in Connecticut, in the circles.
Yes, we
so wanted to let everyone know. So the last time we were on, or you were on, it was an in-person episode. We got to sit down and we were actually trying wines. And at the time, and still to this day, I'm not a wine expert. So we're really looking to you to get a sense of, because it's a non-alc wine, there is obviously a difference, but what are you seeing? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? So it was really fun for me to get to do that with you. And I know we've been able to do that here and there since then. But that's the last time you were on the show. So kind of bring us up to date from then until now in terms of what you've been doing, what you've been working on, and how you go from sommelier to founder.
I know it's a big jump, isn't it? So the first time I came, we tasted, that was really my first foray into alcohol-free wines. It was really interesting for me being so steeped in the world of mainstream wine and tasting those. And there were some not great ones, and then there were some great ones, like Wander and Found is such a great line of alcohol-removed wines. But as, in those 3 years, being steeped in the industry, I found my personal relationship with alcohol began to change. I felt that I was kind of reaching for a glass of wine more often than I thought was the best idea or the healthiest for my body. So over that course of time, I started to bring in other non-alcoholic options. And it was tricky because I would go out and I would try certain things. And as a somm, I'm really specific in what I like to drink, and I want everything to have a certain type of complexity and taste and balance, right? All the tenets of a good drink are what I look for. And I was finding that there was sort of a gap. There wasn't really anything that I was gravitating towards all the time. And so in this journey of stepping back from alcohol, really just embracing more moderation in my life, I started to make some things in my kitchen. So I was thinking about, okay, what makes a good drink? Well, you need some acidity, right? Like especially a glass of wine, you need some nice bright acidity, but it can't be all acidity. You need like a touch of sweetness there just to bring balance. Mm-hmm. And then you want like layers of flavor and complexity and interest. Maybe not all fruit, but maybe bringing in other elements to make sort of a complete beverage. So in my kitchen and, also trying out different herbs and different flavors, I started concocting things at home that were like really suitable as an alternative. And I ended up, sharing with friends and family, and people really enjoyed them. And so I decided this is the time I'm going to actually create this, formulate it the right way with professionals, wow, and bring this product to market. So, currently I am not launched yet. We're looking at about 2026 launch. But yeah, we're formulating, we're getting there. All the fun creative stuff is happening right now.
Wow. So is it too early to tell us a bit more about the brand and kind of the format?
Not at all.
Okay.
So the name of the product is Mod Elixirs. And I can break that down for you. So mod really encompasses a lot of things. The most important point is the moderation aspect of it. For me as a somm, I still love my craft. I'm still passionate about wine, but I've just really scaled back. So I'm more thoughtful and balanced about how I approach having a glass of wine or a cocktail. Mod also is a little bit of a nod to one of my favorite fashion moments, which is, the 60s mod, okay. Right? I just always have loved that era in terms of stylistically, so that too. But I also use mod because I want to encapsulate the idea that this is a drink for the modern drinker, the person who is really wellness conscious and mindful about what they're putting in their body and what they're consuming, and someone who cares about clean ingredients. And someone maybe wants a little bit extra function with that beverage as well. So, a drink for the modern person, for the modern drinker. Elixir, I just found it was a great word because the base of this drink is something called an oxymel. So okay. Oxymel is an ancient medicinal medium, and it was always vinegar and honey. So vinegar and honey was able to capture the essence of many herbs and minerals when delivering like ancient medicine. And it just so happens to taste really good in the correct proportions when it's flavored properly and diluted properly. So this is an elixir. It's something that's actually going to add rather than take away as alcohol does. So Mod Elixirs is the name. Okay,
I love it. And can I take from that, I'm thinking of there's another brand in the market called Curious Elixirs, which is, and I think what they would fall into the category, they're not trying to be a mocktail. They're not a non-alc version of an alcohol drink. Is that true for yours as well? This is a kind of a unique blend or unique concoction?
That's correct. I'm not trying to, be wine or a cocktail or a mocktail. This is really its own thing. And it really hasn't been done in this capacity before, anything that I have found on the market.
That's awesome. And what's your sense of, and I know it's still early days and you're not live yet, do you have an idea around where you see it focusing? Is this something to be enjoyed at home? Do you think restaurants and other on-trade locations would be interested in it? How do you expect, or how do you even now yourself experience the drink, or where do you see your customers sitting?
Right. So as you know, I have background working in hospitality, so sure. Restaurants and high-end restaurants in particular. So I really see it as a dual focus. So the first one would be direct to consumer, and not necessarily direct from me, but to consumer, whether that be e-commerce or in retail. And the reason for that is you're not always out, and sometimes you want something at home, but you don't really have something at home that kind of fits the bill, and this is going to do that. And then the other prong of that is, restaurants and bars that are, and what I like about my drink is really all you have to do is add club soda. Now you can certainly add an NA spirit of choice or a spirit of choice if you're going to have that drink. So if you're out at a bar restaurant, sometimes the bar staff doesn't have an amazing alcohol-free cocktail list, and if they don't have to with this product, you can actually just add your club soda and have a full complete beverage that you can hand off to anybody who's looking for something that doesn't have alcohol. But what you can also do is get creative with it. And so you can, if you do carry a line of alcohol-free spirits or regular spirits even, the bar staff can kind of get creative and play around with it. And also, sometimes I go out on a Saturday and I want to have one. one alcoholic drink, but I don't want to have like
right.
5, right? So you can actually take a Mod Elixir, mix one of the flavors like with rum or bourbon or vodka or whatever. There's different flavors which we can get into, which would have appropriate pairings. Have one with the spirit and then have one without. And you like maintain the same consistency of flavor profile throughout the experience, but you just don't have the alcohol. So I kind of like the flexibility that we're giving people with that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting and also important. I know, like, as we know, the customer, the consumer here is usually moderating and drinking some, right, as opposed to abstaining totally. And this gives people the flexibility to kind of dose it, for lack of a better word, wherever they want on that spectrum. I kind of feel like there's a recipe book somewhere in here, given that you were doing this in your kitchen and you're already talking about its versatility, whether it's with whiskey or rum or whatever. So that sounds kind of exciting. And I know, like, people might be really looking to you to say, okay, well, how do you like to enjoy Mod Elixirs?
Right. Yeah, I see that in the future as well. And that was certainly in the back of my mind as I was creating these. Primarily, I was creating them just for myself in the beginning. And like, okay, let me come up with some flavor categories that I look to when I'm having either, and this actually is true for wine and for cocktails, but like sort of categories of flavor. So I'll start to introduce the flavors that we have developing so far. And the names are fluid at this point because Jillian can't make a decision. But
well, Jillian has time.
Jillian's time. So there's one which is sort of a dark and layered and complex flavor base. Now, as I had mentioned, vinegar and honey, we're using apple cider vinegar and honey in all of the formulations. However, this one also uses an aged balsamic vinegar to give a lot of depth, right, and to kind of darkness. So we're using the balsamic, we're going to have a bit of dates, and then we're sort of blending some warm spices and some orange and vanilla. Now, please don't take notes here because, this is
a secret recipe.
Secret recipe. No, but I want to give the audience an idea of like what these are going to taste like. So this is our dark and rich and layered flavor with spices and complexity. It's something to think on. Then we have sort of the opposite. We have a light and bright. So we have citrus, lime, lemon, orange, pink peppercorn, because you need a little bit of heat in there too. And pink peppercorn is amazing because it also has a fruitiness to it, which I just love on its own. So we're bringing that in. And we're also using Damiana, which is an herb. It's a yellow, like a tropical yellow plant, which does give a little bit of flavor, but it's really an herb for sort of calming the nervous system. But also the flavors are light, bright, and a little bit of heat there. So that's sort of another kind of area of flavor when you're not in the mood for something darker, but something fresh and light. And then we have something sort of in the middle. So that is an elderberry and elderflower based flavor. So you have your dark berry fruit flavors, and we have a little hit of lemon and ginger. Again, ginger for just a little heat and a little citrus to balance everything out. So that's more like your fruit forward flavor base where, we can relate all of these to, cocktails and to wine as well. So they sort of fill 3 different buckets at this point.
Okay, so you're looking at probably 3 at this point in terms of
3 right now. Yeah.
Space. Okay, great. I want to switch gears a bit and go back to your other side, your sommelier side. Has the non-alc wine part of your sommelier profession or work stayed? And with that in mind, have you noticed any trends in terms of evolution, any new brands or adoption in the amongst your client base, or just generally, what are you seeing, given that you're such an early entrant of somebody who's an expert in the wine industry as a sommelier, but also was open-minded enough to kind of sit down with me early on and look at some non-alc wines where a lot of other people might have, and even still to this day, are turning up their nose.
Yes.
Not that it hasn't changed, because it has, but it's still, I think, at the beginning. What have you seen, if anything, in terms of having that unique kind of point of view?
I have seen a tremendous shift in consumers' desires and taste, really. So as a person, I still continue to do wine tasting. So as I had mentioned, I was working in hospitality, but I had my own wine events company. So I'm still out there all the time talking to people who enjoy quality wine and really enjoy the experience of wine in particular. And I like to test the water. So I'll mention that, oh, by the way, if anyone in your group doesn't drink alcohol, we can have some great options. I always plug the Wander and Found because I love them so much. So we always are offering other options to the entire group. But when I say that, it always sparks something. And what I find is there's like a few different camps. There's people sort of in my age range that are feeling that they just can't drink alcohol like they used to. That's sort of like the number one thing I hear. And that's probably because the people I work with are around my age, a little bit older than me. So they're just saying my body can't do it anymore. But then also I talk to, skewing a bit younger than me, and they just like don't even want to partake, or they have like one or two glasses and then they want to switch to something else.
Okay.
And people are extremely open. They're experimental. But they don't know what to drink. They don't know what to buy.
Okay.
And so they ask me all the time, like, well, what do you like, right? Because obviously, I have some experience with tasting. So I feel that, there's a huge openness. I find people initially want a straight substitution for wine.
Okay.
And then after they may try some wines, and then they will start going into other territory, whether it be like a Curious, where it's sort of Curious Elixirs, where like it's its own thing. And there's really good products on the market. So, aside from mine, which is coming,
there's still more coming. And I think, now there are a lot
constant.
leaving the market too, but I think that's a flight to quality as the industry has matured, which includes what you're working on with that, people with the background experience like you have. Okay, so that's interesting. What about on the trade side? So like you said, you come from hospitality. You have a lot more. I've done a few run-ins in terms of restaurants and talking about it. I'll tell you our experience first and then get your thoughts. So we do a lot of work with off-trade, which, that's back, to your point. It's consumer, the consumer's making the decision and making the purchase. When it comes to on-trade and restaurants, I still find it's funny because I would have thought that's the easiest sell, because if someone's going to come to a restaurant and they've already decided not to drink, so for the restaurant owner, you're not losing a wine sale. This person's already not buying the wine. You're actually upselling a free water to a $8 glass of wine. It's just non-alc. So for me, that was like, this is an easy sell. I've actually found the restaurant business amongst all our channels of sales for non-alc wines and ready to drinks and what have you, the hardest channel, the hardest to convince. And of course there are examples where somebody might have leaned in, but let's take New York City, for example. And I was, talking to, food editors who work with restaurants and know all the restaurants in the city. They can only, less like one or two that actually have a reasonable non-alc wine selection. Like I found it still has not really cracked the restaurant business, hospitality.
I see that. I see some, I see that. I don't know what the percentage split is, right? But from where I'm going, most of the time they still don't have a alcohol-free list or non-alc list. Now, I actually brought this up to a restaurant owner recently that I have a good relationship with. And I said, hey, I noticed you guys don't have like a non-alcoholic list on the website. And I said, you guys have something? They said, no. Well, he didn't know the answer actually, but then he looked into it and he said, he was like, no, but if somebody comes in and asks, the bar staff is happy to like concoct something for them. I'm like, well, and I said, you are losing money. Like this is a huge opportunity that you're missing, because there is something to be said about having a well thought out list that someone can look at, make a decision on like what suits them. And then guess what? They want to go somewhere out to eat, and they know that you have a list that's going to accommodate, and they're going to have a nice drink with their delicious food that you also serve. They're going to come back because they know you offer that. So, that's a huge point. But I think like it's, there's just sort of a lack of awareness. And I think that sometimes it can just be resistance to the new, or I don't know, like looking like you're jumping on a trend or something. I don't know. I think I do see a change, however, and when I do go to a place that has an actual thought out list, especially for like the mocktails, they're coming up with some amazing things right now. So I mean,
and there
it's too
are
bad.
I think it's like you said, the bartenders will do it. I don't think if you would then talk to the bartender, they don't like doing it, because usually they're doing it kind of off to the side, and they probably don't get the same tip, especially if it's not priced on the menu. So and to the extent that we see it at all, we're seeing it in mocktails. So yeah they'll have a mocktail, and maybe some restaurants will have enough product, spirit alternatives, and mocktails ready to pour so they can just pop and go. So if somebody wants a non-alc gin and tonic, you're done. So the bartender's happy, the customer's happy, but having what we call that a mirror menu, basically take your beverage menu and try to come up with a non-alc version of that. That would be the fully mature, or even a subset. So the first area we see is mixed drinks. But when it comes to, and then even before that, beer. Okay. But even then, it's usually one. They have one beer, even in one beer, which is the most mature of the non-alc, it's one.
Yeah.
So, and then when you come to wine, you're talking single digit percentage restaurants. And even then some do, like the Gramercy Tavern, and these are like well-run establishments, leaders. Yeah. So, but they are few and far between.
Right.
And for wine especially.
I think that with wine, there's a couple of things to consider. Number one, as you know, because it doesn't have alcohol, it is limited once you open the bottle. And restaurants do have a fear that you're going to maybe serve one and that's it. However, there's so many companies who are doing single serve portions right now, and that is the perfect antidote to this problem for restaurants. And even when I was in restaurants, a lot of times we would do single serving sparkling wine, Prosecco or whatnot, just to not have to throw things out. It was a little more expensive initially. You didn't have quite the margin, but it was certainly better than dumping.
Yeah, we do that either canned. It's funny because we know this from our in-store sales, because when we talk to our liquor accounts, they were like, no, wine in a can, that doesn't sell. But non-alc wine in a can actually does sell because of that point. And then also 375 milliliter. So for everybody, a standard wine bottle is 750 milliliters. So half bottles. They also disproportionately sell with non-alc for the same reasons you're saying, because people are tending not to buy for a larger group of people.
Right.
Or it's for
and they don't want to, and they don't know if they're going to like it maybe. So it's like a lower
That's true. Lower price point for on-ramp, because, I would say, I don't know what the percentage is. I always say only 95% of the U.S. population still probably hasn't even tried outside of Welch's grape juice or something, hasn't tried a non-alc, a real non-alc wine. So when they're still on-ramping, and when you're on-ramping, you're like, you're a critical consumer. You're evaluating this, and you're right. That price point, we already know because we see debates. We even like Dan, our CEO, is on, and we've seen some debates in the world of non-alc. The non-alc community likes to, and I appreciate and respect the point, but it's actually hard to make a non-alc drink. It's expensive.
Yes.
But the consumer has a preconceived payload that if it doesn't have alcohol, which in brackets, I'm not going to get a buzz, I expect to pay less, not more.
Right. Yeah.
And the industry is kind of like, well, pound the table. It's like, well, you don't understand. Let me explain. The customer doesn't care. So you've got to make that on-ramp palatable to the consumer. And one way is smaller portions there's a really interesting, I'm going to forget the name. There's a wine in a can. They serve it on United Airlines, and I know the founder, but that was the format. I forget the name the name of the brand speaks to the fact that it's a smaller format, and with that, it's actually an alc wine. They do have a non-alc SKU, but the alc wine. But the idea is, yes, it's wine, but I'm getting less of it. I'm actually physically consuming less liquid as another way to moderate. So kind of people are coming at this problem or opportunity, as you described it, in a variety of different, from a variety of different directions.
Right.
Well, I am excited for Mod Elixirs, and I am definitely going to want to hear how things play out for the second half of the year as you go into 2026. For people that are interested and would like to hear about what's going on, even if there's not a website up or anything like that, is there a way to get on a mailing list, or how do they stay in touch with you if they want to hear more?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is being designed. It will be modelixirs.com. We're fortunate to have gotten that.
Yeah.
If you want to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, we have the same handle. It's just at Mod Elixirs, and it's spelled Elixirs, which is the correct spelling of it. Okay. And then also we can link, I do have another sort of landing site which connects to all of the social media handles, as well as my podcast as well. So
good. And then we'll have this in the description when we go live with this podcast. So I am excited to stay in touch about that, and also continue. We're due for another geek out on.
I know.
I've got probably a half dozen to a dozen wines ready to be sampled if you're around. So
I can't wait.
Good. Jillian Fontana, sommelier turned founder and founder of Mod Elixirs. So thanks for coming back, and it was great to catch up.
Thanks, Chris.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Alcohol Free Radio. We'd love to hear from you. Send us a message on social media or through email at hello@betterroads.com. Great to be here with you all together. Take care.